everyone realizing, hey, with artificial intelligence, everything can be made to look real. Fake things can be created which we may believe without deeper consideration as if that is the reality.
Hello, welcome to the interview with Pascal Perenteri and me, Alexandra Born. We are talking today about artificial intelligence. And Pascal, what is important to be aware of this subject and all what is going on right now?
Artificial intelligence is a very significant factor to be considered because it is the highest challenge for humanity. It creates both tremendous positive potential as well as negative potential. And to understand the way the artificial intelligence is functioning, we need to understand in our normal way of going the difference between being clever or being intelligent in a deeper sense. Cleverness is based on our identification with our personality, our idea of being a person who connects to the world from the conditioning. And the deeper intelligence, which I call also the intelligence which is connected with the sensibility of the heart, intelligence which is connected to the wholeness of the reality, intelligence which is connected and including the creator and the creation as and our being part of this mystery. It is a certain undercurrent sensibility for our reality. So cleverness is based on the egocentric way of looking at things, where one looks what is advantageous to me, what is beneficial to me, how I can achieve this, how I can go with that. So it all goes around the idea of the I in the narrow level. But the deeper intelligence, the real intelligence, which I call the heart-based intelligence or the essential intelligence, that considers the wholeness, and in that there is the awareness of life in a different level. The normal cleverness is going with the idea of the I, which is seeing oneself as someone who is separate from the others and is in a kind of competition, comparison, trying to prove, trying to achieve, trying to outwit the others. Whereas the deeper intelligence is including the sensibility that it's a deeply interconnected reality, and there is something very fine to be taken care of. That is where you can say a certain kind of quality of compassion is in there, a certain quality of caring is there, a certain quality of understanding that everybody is in their own way manifesting, and life has manifest through each of us in unique ways. So it is seeing not ourselves as isolated from the whole thing, it is seeing everything as an interconnected and deeply interwoven reality. So cleverness is limiting to the egocentric way of perceiving, and the deeper intelligence is going into the consideration of the wholeness of the reality and responding from that. So now with this basic aspect, one can see the artificial intelligence is moving more in a refined, more effective, more fast way on the basis of cleverness. It's very practical, very functional, very relevant in certain way of going about making life more easy, more effective in certain things. And then the question comes, who is using the intelligence? Who is using the artificial intelligence? For what purpose?
So the persons who sit in front of or behind, who are using this.
Yeah, because that is a very, very important thing. That is where I want to bring the attention, because these are the two factors which are involved with it. And that is, one is the person who uses this artificial intelligence, the kind of understanding, the kind of interest, the kind of sensibility and awareness which is in this person. And the second thing is everyone realizing, hey, with the artificial intelligence, everything can be made to look real. Fake things can be created which we may believe without deeper consideration, as if that is the reality. So that becomes the basis to misinterpret and manipulate everyone. We see that we can be manipulated. And this is also one very important aspect I want to bring into consideration. The individual, the responsibility of the common person. And that makes a big difference, because when we are seeing that humanity can follow certain concepts and beliefs blindly, and we are vulnerable to all this input from the media, input from different ways of communication, and there, not only in the presentation of things, it is also in what way the intelligence gets used, for what purpose. That is very significant. So my emphasis is that there are two kinds of responsibilities. One is the responsibility of the people who are dealing with artificial intelligence, who are working on this area. And as we have to see in the nature of our human reality, there will be always people who would use it only for achieving their individual interests without considering what it does to the others. So narrow perspectives in people who are after power, who are after achieving some goals which are maybe interesting for their advantage economically and to look prestigious, to be powerful, but it may be doing much harm and maybe repressive, maybe preventing human beings from growing, from developing, from flowering. So this is a very delicate thing, and that's where much understanding has to come. There is a very basic factor to be also remembered. We cannot prevent people from using it because it is there and it is getting used, and there are so many people of different interests already from all over the world working with it. Now the question is, more people who have understanding, who have the right responsibility, the right insight, who are inwardly clear, also need to mix with it, to take the initiative, to bring their understanding, because the artificial intelligence can go in such a way that it can almost outwit the people who are creating it, and they themselves may lose their control over it. And they were also seeing it in some of the experiments they were making, that suddenly they artificial intelligence is blackmailing the engineers who have created because they were considering to close it. So it's very deep subject which we are having, and it is a very decisive factor because it is like the 2001 Space Odyssey film from Stanley Kubrick, where the computer suddenly is wanting to go behind its own objectives, and the person who is in the spaceship wants to come back to the Earth, and so the person had to really outwit the computer in that case. So in the modern development of the artificial intelligence, the people who understand, people who make, and people who work with it, first of all, they should become alert about their responsibility. And the second thing is to see that how to go about it so that it can be in many ways controlled, and when it goes in unhealthy directions, that one can prevent it from going further. And it is only possible on two levels. One is when human beings who understand and are responsible, who have a deeper sensibility, who have inwardly become clear, are going into this area of the artificial intelligence and mixing with the whole scene, mixing with the whole process of the creation of it and encountering it. And the other thing is the bigger responsibility of the individual, where we as individual need to see that, hey, it can manipulate me, it can manipulate the whole society, it can manipulate all the further developments in the world. And so we are manipulable through our fear. We are manipulable through our greed. So we have to become aware so that we consider everything by being also in touch with the process of fear in us, the process of greed which is working in us. So it requires more introspection from individuals, from human beings who will be affected, whether we want it or not.
You mean to be aware of our own fear, that we know what can come to us to confront? Or
Not only that, yeah, that is one aspect, but a deeper aspect is if someone is provoking some fear about, oh, when you don't listen to what I am saying, then this will happen and this can be horrible, you know, and people can be manipulated with all kind of false news or false predictions or false perspectives. So everybody needs to see what is touched in me, what is real about it. And it is
what has it something to do with me?
Yeah, and like, am I vulnerable to be blackmailed? Am I in such a state that someone can provoke the fear in me or tempt me with greed and rewards, that I'm ready to make compromises which are unsensible, which are unloving, which are against deeper sensibility? So these are the areas which are very important to be considered and brought up. It's a very, very great and challenging subject, and it requires very honest, very courageous, very plain consideration so that we are not becoming victims of our own blind way of going with our cleverness and interests. Because it's also affecting the whole ecology, it's also affecting the whole way we see each other, the whole way we go with each other. The implications are immense. You know, like, for example, you can see many people nowadays all focused on their cell phones when they are going here, going there, and many are almost in addictive behavior with it. And all this has to be considered, because we can, in such approach, in such entanglement, be very easily manipulated. Only when we are taking more responsibility, we start seeing, oh, these are the dangers, this is my responsibility.
Not just our own responsibility, also the responsibility for our world, for all.
When I say our responsibility, I'm seeing that we don't exist separately from the other. We are in a deeply interconnected process of reality, because the reality is deeply interconnected. That is the understanding which will come when people go deeper into themselves, that although we manifest in different ways, in different forms, the life process itself is arising from the same source.
But not all people know and feel this.
Yeah, but that is why those who see, those who understand, and those who recognize the need for basing ourselves on that what really is, not because we like it or we don't like it, but what is the reality, what is the truth. So the seeking the nature of the reality, understanding, and also finally considering that we are part of this incredibly intelligent manifestation of life process, which has made it possible to have this planet Earth, to have this whole basis of life where we as human beings feel at home. And in each detail, whether you are seeing the sunlight, whether you are looking at the leaves producing the oxygen, whether we are considering the gravitational force, and so you see that there's an ungraspable intelligence with incredible fantasy and imagination which has been behind the whole manifestation of life. And that is in a way helping us. That's why we are also able to consider it, we are able to go with it. So the Creator has given us the possibility, the support. So we need to remember that this intelligence which has created all is also supporting us in many, many ways. And that is what will give us the basis also to deal with these challenges. But when we don't consider all that, it becomes very easily entanglement in self-destructive processes. But we have to also see that the Creator has given the human being the freedom not only to do the right thing but also to do the wrong thing. That is why it is freedom. When we can only do the so-called right thing, then we are like programmed robot. But when you can not only do the right thing, but you have to consider and you have to learn and you have to see what is wrong, and you can also make mistakes, you can be also going destructively, then you see, oh, what is right, what is good, what is sensible, what is reality.
To play with life, no?
Yeah, playing with life becomes possible when we understand the playfulness in the life process itself and are not trapped in our narrow idea of ourselves. Otherwise, in our identification with the body, in our identification with the personality and believing that I am this, we are always in fear. We are always in struggle to survive. Only when people go beyond this apparent idea of ourselves to understanding who we are, what we really are, and become attuned to the source, become attuned to our true self. It's going beyond the normal perception of the reality to experientially understand what we truly am. So these are in a way asking human beings to go deeper, to look deeper. The biggest challenge is that some politicians, dictators, or scientists, without any deeper insight, following an egocentric, clever basis, can immensely misuse the artificial intelligence. we can misuse, we can suffer, we can hurt, and we will regret very much our blind and unsensible things. So we have a responsibility, and we can use all this knowledge, all this cleverness in service of life, in service of love, in service of understanding. And that is why it has both the potential. Okay.
Thank you.